I'm Roger Lanius. I'm Associate Director for Collections and Curatorial Affairs here at the National Air and Space Museum. We're out at the Udvar-Hazy Center today near Dulles Airport to look at the Space Shuttle Discovery. It is a marvelous piece of machinery built by NASA in the 1970s, flown for the shuttle program over a 30-year period, retired in 2011, and coming here in 2012, where it is its permanent resting place and will be available for people to view indefinitely into the future. One of the things that we tried to do, and we persuaded NASA to do this, was to leave this vehicle relatively intact. In the best of all possible worlds, when the astronauts got out of it, we would have simply closed the door and sealed it in time. And that's the way it would be. Now, in reality, we can't do that. There were toxic substances that were used in the engine system, in the reaction control system, things of this nature. That all had to be purged and cleaned out. There were other things that needed to be done to make it acceptable to bring to a museum. But as near as possible, this is a vehicle that is as it was at the last flight of it. Well, we're now at the aft end of the Space Shuttle Discovery. It's an interesting place to be because you see the two major technological issues that NASA had to overcome in terms of flying into space with a space shuttle. The first was the Space Shuttle main engine, the three engines that you see back behind me. Those were the most complex rocket engines ever built and remain so to the present. There are very good other types of engines out there, but none of them are as sophisticated or deliver as much power per pound of propellant as the Space Shuttle main engine does. But it took them a long time to get it to work properly in the 1970s, and in part because of that, the shuttle's first flight, which was supposed to have been 1978, actually got pushed back to 1981 so that they could perfect the engines. The second thing that you see back here is a part of the thermal protection system. It's a very unique system in which there are all of these individual tiles all over the vehicle itself, as well as thermal blankets to try to protect it as it returns to Earth. And the tiles have been famous throughout NASA history as this really unique, different, remarkably successful but also fragile way of coming home from space to deal with the friction associated with re-entering the atmosphere. Well, this is the Canadarm, and it is a fundamental part of what the space shuttle was able to do. It was a robotic arm that was in the payload bay of the space shuttle. We've got it displayed beside the shuttle here, built by through the auspices of the Canadian Space Agency. And it is a remarkable piece of technology. Whenever you see the astronauts engaged in spacewalks, you will always see one of them standing on a little platform at the end of this Canadarm and somebody inside the spacecraft maneuvering them around so that they can reach whatever it is that they need to reach. It provides a great platform for stability, for movement, for capturing a satellite and moving it from one place to another. All of that was made possible with the Canadarm. It's a source of pride for Canadians, as well it should be. It led the way to all kinds of robotic technology that has followed this piece of equipment and has been used in a variety of other settings. There are versions of this on the International Space Station today, and I was just talking to the Canadian Space Agency representative in Washington the other day, and he pulled out of his wallet something that he is very proud of, a $5 Canadian note that on the back of it had images of astronauts using the Canadarm. And he says, "I'm especially pleased because this has replaced hockey players on the back of the $5 note." Well, you're at the nose of the Space Shuttle Discovery now, and as you can see, it's pretty big. It's fairly blunt bodied. It's not a sleek sort of jet like we're used to seeing that go very, very fast at all. And part of the reason for that is that when it comes back into the atmosphere, you want to have that blunt body to kind of capture the friction and disperse it. and disperse the heat off of the vehicle. And that's what happens. The tiles that you can see very clearly here are also in that category. They help with the process of thermal protection as the spacecraft comes home from a mission in space. It's a big winged glider. There's no jets associated with it during the landing. It comes in at a fairly steep angle, at a fairly high speed. The astronauts love to refer to it as having all of the flying characteristics of a brick. And at some level that's true. It glides along the surface, and because it's moving so fast, there is some lift that's generated by the wings. They're able to come in, but when you hear the sonic boom as the shuttle comes below the sound barrier near the landing site at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, you know that it's going to be on the ground very, very quickly, because it comes down fairly hard. The landing gear are very robust so that it can take the weight of the vehicle as it hits the pavement reasonably hard, harder than a normal airliner would be able to do. Our objective is that 500 years from now, 1,000 years from now perhaps, people who will be coming to the Smithsonian Institution, and we like to think it'll be here that long, will be able to study and understand what the 20th century brought to us in terms of space exploration. And the Discovery is a big piece of that particular story.